Micah chapter 2 and verse 10. Arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest. Because it is polluted, it shall destroy you even with the sword destruction. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachak. Double honors to the elder apostles, the elder bishops, the elders of Great Millstone, who rule very well, very beautifully. Double salutations be unto the Akim out here pushing this gospel in truth and in sincerity to the best of their ability given to them by Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Peace, blessings, and salutations be unto the elect scattered abroad. May the election of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Lord willing, fall upon your houses. This is Brother Quana Wath coming back at you, Lord will, with the edifying lesson through spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Lord will. It is edifying, Lord will. It is straight to the point. And I came across this article, as you see right here at the bottom. It says thehardysoul.com. I want to say, maybe, I want to say maybe a couple weeks back, and we're just kind of ultimately, meditating on, other different points and whatnot. Man, the Spirit didn't hop on me to, ultimately go into this, but the Spirit's on me, to touch on it now. Hey, man, this shit is crazy, right? It says U.S. chicken banned in the EU since 1997, right? We're talking about American chicken, right? Banned in the EU since 1997, almost 30 years. Almost 29 years, U.S. chicken has been banned, from being, bought and sold in the European, basically in Europe, right? EU stands for European Union, right? And I'm gonna read this, man. This is, man, fuck this devil, man. It says every summer tens of millions of Americans throw chicken on the grill without giving a second thought to how it got from the farm to the package in their fridge. The familiar smell of roasting bird, the satisfying sizzle on a hot pan, it all feels completely routine. But somewhere between the farm and that dinner plate, something happens to American chicken that has kept it locked out of an entire continent's food supply for nearly 3 decades. It says European regulators don't think of it as a trade squabble or bureaucratic technicality. They have a word for American poultry, right? And you see that word, I'm not going to say that, but it says chlorine chicken, right? It translates to chlorine chicken, right? Which chlorine is not, that's not something that you're supposed to be ingesting, right? It says the label has stuck, and while the politics of transatlantic trade have repeatedly brought this dispute to a boil, most recently during renewed US-UK trade talks in 2025, most American consumers have never been asked whether they're comfortable with the system that processes their food. And that's exactly it, right? You got a lot of this food, right, that's ultimately being, bought and sold here in America. Majority of it is processed, man. Even those that, that say that they're organic or that say that they're, non-GMO, most of the time, it's ultimately lies, it's deception. A lot of the food that's, bought and sold here in America is processed and it's GMO, you know, which GMO ultimately stands for genetically modified organism, right? It's not, natural, right? Again, it's create most of the shit's created in a lab, or the seed, right, of whatever fruit, that is picked, right, and grown here, right? It's a genetically modified seed. So none of these, this is why you see a lot of these different fruits, vegetables, they don't ultimately have seeds, right? Right? It's not real food. Right? So let's keep going, right? It says the ban that has stood for nearly 30 years, right? It says rinsing poultry in chlorine was common practice in the U.S. when the European Union first passed a ban in 1997 that prohibited chlorine and other so-called pathogen reduction treatments. The term pathogen reduction treatment refers to any microbial substance applied to any antimicrobial substance applied to a carcass during processing to kill or suppress bacteria. Again, you know what? It's chemicals basically, which that stuff right there, right? The PRTs is basically again chemicals, right, being used. And you don't, because, what is it? Heat is one of them, right? The UV treatments. Then you got actual chemical use. Then you got radiation, right? When you look it up, right, what are, the PRTs, right? Those are the things that they use, right? The main one being what? Those chemicals, right? Which is, what affects, you people, where your body, right, being broken down and, being destroyed, right? Which is what we read in Micah 2 and 10, right? It will destroy you with the sword of destruction, right? It says the EU began to prohibit the use of PRTs for both domestic and imported poultry in 1997, right? Key regulatory language states that food business operators shall not use any substance other than potable water to remove substance contamination from products of animal origin unless a specific substance has been approved by the EU. So the EU saying, nah, right? We're going to use water, right? Hot water, boil, to clean things off, whatnot, you know, or just, just heat in general, it kills bacteria, right? They're not going to use that chlorine is what they're saying, which we understand that they have that, defiled food, over there as well, right? Really, the defiled food is all across the world, but mainly here in America, right? It says, because the U.S. relies heavily on chemical treatments in its processing chains, this dispute has effectively shut out virtually all imports from the United States since then. Although the United States is the second largest global exporter of poultry meat, virtually no U.S. poultry meat is being purchased for consumption in the EU. Some estimates suggest the combined effects of the ban and the growth of the EU market have led to a 200 million to 300 million in lost U.S. sales annually. The ban didn't emerge from nowhere. Washing chicken in chlorine solution. It's like it didn't. The ban didn't emerge from nowhere. Washing chicken in chlorine solution at concentrations of 20 to 50 parts per million provides a cost-effective method of killing microorganisms on the surface of the bird, particularly bacteria such as Salmonella and Campylobacter. I don't know what that is. We'll have to look it up. But it says these are the pathogens most commonly responsible for food poisoning from poultry. The U.S. framed these rinses as a practical, science-backed tool. Europe disagreed, but not for the reason most people assume, right? So, again, right, they're ultimately, here in America, they use chlorine and other chemicals, right, to clean the chicken. And it's not even just that, right? Again, they're giving these these chicken, right, the chicken here in America, where they're giving them, the growth hormones and stuff like that, making them, they're not even regular sized chickens, man. These chickens are fucking huge, right? You got a regular sized, or you'll go to the store and get, a chicken breast, and that shit's, damn near the size of your fucking forearm, Whereas, I grew up on a farm, for the first 6-7 years of my life. And then even now, my mom, she still has, chickens, even, a brother here in camp, man, that brother has chickens as well, man. And the chicken breast is damn near the same size that you buy at the store. It's damn near the same size as these chickens, man. So it just shows you right there, right? They're putting shit, putting these different chemicals and whatnot in the food, right? Which again is ultimately part of the curses, right? That we will eat, our bread defiled, amongst the Gentiles. Let's go to that. Ezekiel, I think it's Ezekiel 4. And right here, Ezekiel 4 and 13, it says, and Yahweh said, even thus shall the children of Israel eat their defiled bread among the Gentiles, whither I will drive them. So all the food that we eat is ultimately defiled, man. And it's ultimately because of Esau Edom, right? He's the one that's in control of everything that's, that is as it says in Job 9:24, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked, right? He's in control of the world, right? And he's ultimately the one that's pushing, for, the whole Monsanto, forcing these different farmers and whatnot to, stop planting natural seeds, right? And to plant their, genetically modified, seeds, right? Which ultimately don't, those seeds don't ultimately bear fruit or vegetables that have seeds. Therefore, you can't, just keep, you can't just, ultimately take the seeds from those, the crops and then just continue to plant them and just do it like that. Really, you just buy the seeds one time and then keep going. No, they want you to buy the seeds consistently, man. Right? It's all a money scheme. It's a money grab. Right? So they ultimately take away the ability to seed, which will really forces you to have to do a lot of work, because now you got to rip everything up out of the ground. You got to till the ground again, so on and so forth, which, those are things that you got to do. But sometimes, when you ultimately leave, stuff, sometimes it'll grow in it, on its own, right? The seed will drop, right? The food will ultimately get, smashed or whatever into the ground, or, animals will pick it up, and then, ultimately, dish out their waste somewhere else, and then the seed, ultimately goes to the ground, and then they'll start growing, and you know what I mean? There's a whole a natural process that the Lord ultimately created, right, for some of these things to ultimately happen and take place. But see, Esau done fucked it all up, man. Esau has destroyed everything, right? Turned everything upside down, right? Which is Isaiah, the 26th chapter. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's 9. No. Isaiah 29. Yeah, right here. Isaiah 29 and verse 16. It says, surely you're turning of things upside down, right? Because Esau has fucked everything up, man. He's destroyed the order of the world, right? Starting, really with humans, right? The woman is over the man, and it goes past that, right? It goes into, the animals. It goes into the earth. Esau has fucked everything up, man. It says, surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed as the potter's clay. For shall the work say of him that made it, he made me not? Or shall the thing framed say of him that framed it, he hath no understanding? Esau done fucked everything up, man. Esau has completely, flipped everything upside down, man. And soon Yahweh Shemel Shai is ultimately going to, establish a righteous rulership where everything's going to be different, man. Right? The food that we eat is not going to be defiled in the kingdom, man. Let's grab this. Grab a couple more scriptures, man. I was just meditating on this. This is Sirach 10 and 8. It says, Slakia. Right here, verse 3. Just hitting the points, right? Sirach 10 and 3. An unwise king destroyeth his people. And see, this is how Esau's doing that, via this, the food, right? The water, right? You have to ultimately, which, Lord will receive it, this Tuesday, man. But, I was listening to Elder Apostle Har, and he was going into, what is that word, man? Not saturated, but speaking about the water, right? How the water ain't even got, you know what I mean? It ain't even got it's not even really, good for you. The bottled water and stuff like that, it's got BPAs and forever chemicals and so on and so forth, right? In the water, man. And this is what we have to drink. This is what we have to fucking drink. This is bullshit, man. Fuck this devil, man. It says what? An unwise king destroyed his people, but through the prudence of them which are in authority, the city shall be inhabited. And here's the point. The power of the earth is in the hand of the Lord, and in due time he will set over it one that is profitable, right? Yahweh Shai, right? Starting with Yahweh Shai, down to, the rest, the elect of the nation of Israel. King David after Yahweh Shai, then the rest of the 144,000, right? And then the rest of the elect, and then eventually all Israel, a righteous rulership is going to be established to where we're not going to eat none of this GMO bullshit ass food, man. We're going to have good food, right? It's going to go back. The Lord is ultimately going to restore the earth to the way it's supposed to be, right? What does it say? Looking for a new heavens and a new earth wherein dwelleth righteousness, right? It's not talking about an actual new planet. No, it's talking about the earth being renewed, right? Restored. And that's what's coming, man. And the shit that we eat now, it's not going to be the same, Scriptures talk about, 2 men grapes, vine. What is it talking about? Scripture talk about, I think it's Chronicles. Hold on, let me find it. Salak. God, I found it right here. This is Numbers 13 and verse 23. It says, and they came unto the brook of Eshel and cut down from thence a branch with one cluster of grapes. And they bare it between two men upon a staff. And they brought of the pomegranates and of the figs. So we're talking about a whole cluster of grapes, one single cluster of grapes so big that 2 men have to carry it, man. That's what the earth is ultimately going to be, go back to, man, where the, the fruit is, fully matured, right? The food, it's good for you. It's fully, it's got all the nutrients, vitamins, all the things that we need, right? And we're not going to, you're not going to have to sit here and eat multiple. You're not going to take, iron pills because you're lacking iron. You're not going to take, magnesium pills because you're lacking magnesium. Everything that we need, right, is gonna come from the earth. It's not gonna be these chemicals, man. What is that? Sirach, the 38th chapter, tells you right here in verse 4. It says, the Lord hath created medicines out of the earth, and he that is wise will not abhor them. Right, and those medicines are what? All these different vegetables, fruits, stuff that again comes from the earth, right? These are those medicines, man. Right, so all the again the leafy greens, right? The sweet fruit, right? Not only is it just food, but it actually has medical benefits, man. Right, it'll heal us. It has all the different vitamins and nutrients to make us strong and healthy, right? But see, Esau you got something right for the water that's called reverse osmosis, where they strip it of all the different nutrients and stuff like that, and then they put their own synthetic, bullshit in there, like synthetic electrolytes. And even then, there was a video brothers had, Brother Yawana had showed me a while ago. This dude basically took like 20 different fucking, types of water and was taking a pH, thing in it. And there was a lot of them that had, they're coming from waste treatment plants, man. Water treatment plants, right? The water that goes down your drain and your toilet, so on and so forth, that goes right back to that plant to be treated and is sent back. Well, he was, basically doing the pH for some of the water, and the shit, you can see the fucking toilet paper is still, still in there, right? Once you like shine a, I think it was like UV light or a pH, whatever he was doing, man. I can't remember, it was years ago, but nonetheless, right? That's the shit that we drink, man. That's the shit that we eat. All the different chemicals, man, in our food and our water, right? But soon it's not gonna be that way, man. Soon, the Lord's finna take this devil down, man. And we're gonna be able to eat good food, man. Good food, good fruit, right? Drink, good, wine, right? Because even the wine here, right, is bullshit, man. Made with GMO fucking, grapes and shit. So it's not even real wine. Some of the wine I be drinking, it's got a weird aftertaste, man. I don't like that shit. But this is what we deal with, man, every single day. And this devil's got to go, man. But I just want to touch on that, man. Lil Will was edifying, Lil Will straight to the point. Quick little, 2-piece, man, through the spirit. So with that, I want to give all praise, honor, glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Merchak, Wadash, Double Honor to the other apostles, the other bishops, great millstones. Till next time, I say shalom.